Welcome to the Art of Adventure. This is episode 215 with Chase Boehringer. The Art of Adventure is the podcast that helps you travel the world, run your business, and embark on an epic quest. I'm your host, lead explorer and guide Derek Loudermilk. You can head to derekloudermilk.com to check out the show notes for this episode and all the other episodes. On today's episode, we have returning guest Chase Boehringer, who's the founder and creator of the Bucketlist Lifestyle. And this is a little bit different episode because Chase and I are good friends. We've met up a couple times in different countries, different continents, and we run similar businesses. We both are coaches. We both lead adventure trips. And so we're going to be talking a little bit more about our shared experience of running these businesses. And you're going to hear some behind the scenes, what it takes to run an adventure company, how Chase is building his brand, building trust and relationships for future customers. And we're going to also tell lots of travel stories. Our trip to Octoberfest together, Chase's recent trip to India, where he avoided being scammed by pretty much every Airbnb host he encountered. We talk about my trip to Cambodia, where I went to explore a Khmer Rouge hideout, and we talk about his discovery of the king's private temple in a cave in Thailand. So some cool stories and some great behind-the-scenes business details from both of us. So without further ado, here is my friend Chase Boehringer. Welcome back to the Art of Adventure. Today we have returning guest Chase Boehringer. Welcome back to the show.
Yeah, I'm so pumped to be here.
And we right before we started recording, we looked back to see when Chase's first interview aired, and it was just before we met up in Munich for Octoberfest. So we thought first we would talk a little bit about. So Chase and I were friends online for a year before we ever met up in Octoberfest. And he said, "Hey, I'm going with some friends. Do you want to join?" And I was not too far away and hungry at the time. And so I popped over and we hung out. So what was the most memorable part of that trip for you?
Probably just like waking up and caressing your beard every morning and just being able to be in your presence.
I don't remember.
Oh, sorry. You were asleep.
I remember that you, so at some point we were, still working off a hangover, and you got up at midnight and worked like 8 hours before any of us woke up.
Yeah, I would say that was because of my epic work ethic. But that's like 99%, just like being on the wrong time zone.
Either way, I was impressed. I was also impressed that you were considering renting a Porsche and driving really fast to go see the Disney castle. What's
Neuschwanstein.
The name? Neuschwanstein. Yeah.
Yeah, the bucket list item, man. I wanted to drive 160 miles an hour on the Autobahn and go see a castle, because why not? It's like, we're already in Germany. Let's like up level this shit.
Trying to fit as many possible bucket list items in a single day.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know who I am at this point, I'm Chase, and I have a company called the Bucketlist Lifestyle. And pretty much I wrote a bucket list, and now because I'm almost done with that bucket list, now I help other people complete their bucket list items, all sorts of fun, epic stuff. But still, like, going on an adventure is usually just a series of seeing how much fun and ridiculous, epic stuff we can possibly get into in a short amount of time.
I'm actually curious, do you have a San Diego bucket list? Because I know that's where you're based. Do you have like a sub bucket list?
Well, so here's the thing. You'd think that not only would I have a bucket list, but that I would actually get out. But I spend like a solid 90% of my time inside my house. Like, I don't even get out that much. It's like, and that's why I'm like a yearling puppy who's like, the second I get out of the house, I'm just like pulling on the leash, and I'm like, let's do it. But like most of the time, I introvert and I work and I prep for these adventures because like it's really flashy, like my business is so flashy that I understand that I can't get caught up in the hype. I can't get caught up in the, oh, everything's fun and everything is all just like, I don't know, just pretty and sparkly and awesome, because it is. But at the same time, like I need to be putting in the work and the hours and really, really grinding to make sure that on the back end, things are actually, running. Because guess what? Like, yeah, a Lamborghini is really freaking shiny and awesome. But at the same time, like if you don't put oil in it and you're not actually like keeping it up to date, eventually it's just going to explode, or whatever Lamborghini's doing, don't put oil in them. I assume they explode.
It's the fatal flaw of the Lamborghini.
It's true. That's actually the Italian word for explosion is Lamborghini. Most people don't know that.
Wow. Okay. So that's pretty illuminating to look inside. And I think I'd like to look under the hood of our respective businesses later. But let's quickly talk about before we lose Octoberfest altogether.
Yes.
Well, actually, it's surprising because Octoberfest was originally a wedding, and it's been going. People liked the wedding party so much that they've been doing it for like 200 years, which I love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they pretty much were just like I don't care about your bureaucracy and your politics. No one's going to tell us when we can and cannot party. We are going to party every year. And then it was only like, like it started off one time a year, but it was too rainy. So like, screw it. Okay, we're not having fun anymore because it's too cold. So instead of just like canceling this, we're just going to move it to a different time of year and just continue partying.
Yeah. So Oktoberfest now, it barely skims into October. I think it ends like the first day of October, just so they can make it official.
Technically it is.
And so I didn't realize before we went that it was a food festival as well as a beer festival. And, that first day when we were sitting in those benches where I think there was a lot of important people ordering family meals and stuff, but there's this, the huge spread with the pig roasts and it was almost more about the food than the beer.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I'd say more about than the beer because it is such a huge thing. But at the same time, it's the one thing that like is you can get really how should I put this? Like there's so many different options because for most people, anyone who hasn't been to Oktoberfest, it's the same breweries every year after year who are providing the beer. So there's not a lot of options really. Like all the beer almost taste the same. Like some of them taste a little bit better, but in general, it's all like the same type of beer. But with the food, you can go get like most of it's meat, but at the same time, like there's tons of different stuff that you can get. So if you're going to get, something a little bit more flamboyant, a little fun, then food's where you're going to do it.
Flamboyant food.
If you saw that big platter of like meats and stuff. That was pretty flamboyant meat, if I've ever seen flamboyant meat.
Fair enough. Speaking of flamboyant, so one morning Chase was like, let's get up at 5 a.m. everyone and be the first people in line for Oktoberfest, which was great because as we were standing in line, some of the other people in line gave us the scoop on what tent we should go to, which was, I don't even know the name of the tent, but it was a gay Sunday. And it's actually been going on for, I don't know, 40 years or something like that, where the whole tent is, with the exception of us, really was all gay people, and they know this is the tent where you can go and everyone will be there. And it was such a party. It was so much fun.
I mean, especially in the bathrooms, that's where Eric was hanging out most of the time, and you could tell him what was happening in the bathrooms, right, Eric?
I actually did not really see any. I think you saw people. People were making out for sure, but I didn't really see anything more than that. Probably because I was trying to keep my gaze forward.
Well, let's just say for the listeners so they can fully imagine. I mean, we need to understand. People need to really fully picture this in their head. But there were flamboyant meats that were going everywhere in that bathroom. And there was a lot of fun being had by all. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and it was cool because all the other tents were the same. Just a bunch of, your normal German families drinking, your Australian tourists drinking even more, and then the gay tent where everyone is, dancing on tables and probably seeing each other for the first time in a long time because they come from all over Europe to join in this tent, and it's pretty spectacular. I think we didn't even make it until sunset that day.
Oh, definitely not. We when you have those huge, liters of beer, and you're talking the fourth or fifth one, let's just say that let's just say it, you're drunk as hell by the end of that day. But in a good way. It's not in a tequila way. It's in a German beer way. It's in a way of like, oh, let's eat some more pretzels and sausages and sing and listen to my Umpampa music while we're wearing our lederhosen.
After Oktoberfest, I found the size of other beers to be disappointingly small. I feel like a liter is my new favorite size for a glass of beer.
I felt like I had giant Tony Robbins hands when I would grab a regular size glass because it would just like wrap around it like a claw hand.
Yeah, these things definitely you can't hide one in your pocket to try to steal it.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
I think this is the difference also for all your podcast listeners, that like when you have a podcast episode with a friend and you're just bullshitting, I think it's an interesting dynamic because oftentimes when I listen to your podcast, because I am a fan as well, like I'm woo. What's it called again? So, like I do it because like I love the information because I get so much from them. Like I have a notepad when I listen because your guests are so badass. But this is hell. I'm sure that whoever's listening to this is going to get a shit ton of information. But at the same time, what they normally don't get that they're getting with just like your friend is we get to bullshit and make people laugh, and they get to imagine my giant Tony Robbins hands and people getting blowjobs in the bathroom in Germany, which is something they normally don't get. So I'm pretty excited. This is something different.
Yeah, and so what I'd love to do is just since I know we travel a little bit differently, you and I actually, we both consider ourselves to be adventurers. I'm doing more of like an immersive experience where I just go and live for months in a place, and you go and you seek out the craziest craziest things you can find. So we're actually sort of, I'll be the kind of person that gets to know my local checkout person at the grocery store, and you stumble across a party or get into a fight or do like all of these crazy things.
Pretty much like if travel was an alcohol, you would be a 40-year-old woman with a glass of wine, and I would be a high schooler who got his hands on tequila for the first time.
I think that's I would love to think of myself as more adventurous than that, but that's a good comparison.
Okay, all right. Okay, a 40-year-old woman who just went through a breakup, and so she's had like 6 glasses of wine. So you're experiencing it fully, and at the same time you're still on a comfortable leather couch.
Yeah. So let's just popcorn some stories. You were telling me, like, the titles of your stories are hilarious. So yeah, you're telling me about like 30 different stories. One of the ones that I was curious about was I think you said it was a temple with some buried monks or something like that.
Yeah, that one is a very interesting one and that's a short one too. So because I want to hear some of yours. So I was on this road trip through Thailand, and we were right through the skinny part towards the south when we were headed towards the islands. And we ended up stopping because we saw a brown sign, and I believe it was brown. And a brown sign means that it's like a historical site, like it's something big that you would want to see. And I'm hours away from any kind of tourist hotspot. That's for damn sure. I mean, we're a solid 3.5 hours south of Bangkok at this point, and in the middle of nowhere. But we still pull over and start walking up a trail, and there's a statue of a monk with like leopard skin, tiger print cloth, like loincloth and everything around his head, like in the jungle we see. And I'm like, oh, this is so dope. This is so cool. But it was getting really hot, and it was getting really just like musty. It was just like I was sweating like crazy. And so hiking, and the view is getting better because we're next to the beach, and it's beautiful. But I'm just to the point where I'm like, I don't know. This is really crazy. Like it's getting steep, and I have to use my hands sometimes, like pretty much climbing almost. And we end up getting finally to the point where we see someone else, and I'm with a local. So she asks him, how far is it to the top? And he says, oh, it's just ahead. And we get to the top, and they are, stalactites, right? I think they're called stalactites, the things that are coming down from the ceilings. It just opens up, and there's just tons of these stalactites coming down from the ceiling, huge ones, bigger than I've ever seen before, into this cavern, into this massive cave. So we kind of scuffle down a bit, and going through these huge. Have you ever been to Antelope Canyon or to Petra in Jordan? If any of the listeners have, where these huge walls that were made of that water had kind of carved out for many years. These huge walls that were just kind of like squeezing in between, and so it's going from giant open cavern to these little waterways, and we go through, and all of a sudden you turn the corner, and it's a massive cave. I mean, we're talking the size of probably almost a soccer field or like a stadium. I mean, so like a college football stadium, like huge. And it's one giant cave. And then the top, it's like it's been cut out the top. So the sun is shining through the top of this cave into it. And so as the sun is shining down, there's a temple that was made inside of this cave. So there was a temple that the sun was shining down on. And it was just one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in my life as we're going, because there was nobody. I mean, we're talking, this was on top of a mountain in the middle of nowhere. And there's a temple inside of this cave. And all this old growth in this ivy was crawling up this temple it was in Thailand. So the wats they have, they're made of gold. And it was just something to behold. And we walk down and get to see it much closer, and get to see the way the light is shining off of the temple, and just how old it is, but how beautiful and how well it's still held up, and all of the ivy and vines that are reaching up towards the sun. And I decide to search around a little bit because I'm a super curious dude. So I start searching the cave and going into these little, as I called them before, where the water kind of carved its way out.
Yeah.
So into these little areas, and pretty far deep down in the corner where it's really dark. I had my cell phone flashlight, so I was able to see. It was super dark and it got super skinny, but I just something told me to just keep going, and I pushed through the little skinny part, and I got to this area. It was just what I would consider a small cave, probably 12 feet by 6 feet, and there was a little tiny wooden bench, and it looked like there was a butt mark on it. Like someone had just been sitting there for so long that you could see like the thigh and butt imprint on this little old rickety wood. And right across from it was these like a shrine. And the shrine was full of all of these like super sparkly but dusty old monks. Like they were images and a shrine to monks. And then turning my flashlight over to the right, it was a cemetery for monks, and they were buried there. And so you could see that this was a place where the monks had been meditating on that bench in front of their shrine, where they buried their friends, basically, in this mountain, in this cave. And it was just one of like the wildest, out of nowhere places that you would ever expect. And It's still
Yeah.
there. It's still there somewhere in the mountains. Go find it.
Wow. That's good. Do you think that is it still in use? The
Oh yeah, I
temple?
mean it's a no, no. So it's not like people aren't going in there and praying because you can't like you can see through it. Like you can see that like no one goes in there, but you can like look at it because it's so old that and apparently so we got the story eventually, and what it was the king when he wanted to get away from everything and everybody, he would come up to the mountains and he would come. This was like 3 kings ago, and in Thailand, which is like 300 years or so, and or a little less than 300. But anyways, so he would go up in the mountains and he had this temple built in this cave where the sun would shine down, and he would be able to meditate and he would be able to think by himself without all of these other people, talking to him and influencing him, and he was able to just be, truly by himself in the mountains.
That's if I was a king, that sounds like a perfect spot. Build me a cave skylight meditation temple, and don't
Exactly.
bother me.
Got the skylight. Yeah, exactly. Don't mess. Well, no one would like. You had to. I have no idea how they could build a temple there because it's truly like it's like when when I was in the Himalayas. There's temples in the Himalayas where they're at like 15,000 feet and higher. You can see temples up there, and it's just it amazes the mind to imagine people bringing all of this stone and all of everything up into the mountains, because it's not like it was already there. This was all taken up there and built by hand.
I'm so impressed. Basically, all over the world, there are buildings in places that seem like such a pain to try, carrying one brick on your head at a time kind of thing. And it's just so amazing the amount of labor that goes into building all these temples. I mean, all over the world, right? There's these amazing ruins in the middle of nowhere. And
absolutely,
maybe
and on cliff faces and everywhere.
Yeah. And then you think, well, maybe this didn't used to be the middle of nowhere. Maybe this was downtown.
Ooh.
So the story that popped into my head while you were telling your story was actually, it's always great to have like not a super touristy local guide, but just some random dude that you're talking to, and he's like, hey, do you want me to show you this place that I know of? And you're like, all right. So we had this experience in Cambodia where I think it was my barber actually was like, I'll be your tour guide tomorrow if you want. And I was like, okay, that sounds fine. He's like, you just pay for my gas and my motorcycle, which was like $2. Then I'll take you all around. I was like, yeah, sweet.
Yeah.
So we went up to the highlands, which is where the French colonialists like to go because it's too hot in the tropics. So they would always build up in elevation so that it could be a little bit cooler. And they built this huge casino 100 years ago, but they never finished it. And it was sort of the military headquarters for was it the Khmer Rouge, or was it like the other? I can't even remember. Anyway, it was a military headquarters when they had the big Khmer Rouge battle in Cambodia, which was 20 years ago now, I guess. And so this huge epic casino, which was never finished, just is like full of amazing, rooms and lounges, but also full of bullet holes in the walls and totally gutted and empty. And it was such an eerie place, like on the top of a mountain, and the side of the mountain drops 3,000 feet down to the sea. So it's just this abandoned casino mansion on a cliff over the sea with bullet holes everywhere. And then he takes us like down this dirt dusty road past these farm fields, and he's like, okay, now I'll show you something that most people don't get to see. And it was a shrine it was like a family shrine to all the people that had been killed. And he opens this closet, and it's just a closet full of skulls.
What?
Yeah. And he's like, yep, these are all the people that got killed by the Khmer Rouge.
What?
And so most of the people were like killed and put into pits, but these, I guess, were people that were killed and put somewhere, and then their families like came back and collected them. So they have a cabinet full of their family skulls. What? It was so crazy.
Holy shit.
And the thing
Oh
that,
my God. This is Cambodia, right?
yeah, Cambodia, which, they had such atrocities there. And what I found was that people there, you think, oh my gosh, like this type of killing would affect the whole nation, the whole group psyche in such a way that, how could they ever recover? But what I found was that the people of Cambodia were so forgiving of their countrymen who perpetrated these crimes, that they were so focused on the future and bringing everyone together and harmony and rebuilding, that it wasn't that much of a conversation. And I was really impressed because, as Westerners, our ex-girlfriend said something mean about us and we still get angry about it 20 years later. And they have a closet full of bones and they've made peace with it.
Wow. That's a hell of an experience. Damn. Where in Cambodia?
This was so it was close to the coast. I think a little bit to the east of Sinukville, which is, I think, where all the Russians go now, is Sinukville.
Interesting. Okay. Let's go to the Russian skull casino. I know that's a little bit all over the place, but I'm curious. I know that one thing that excited me that you had mentioned at the beginning of the call is maybe really getting under the hood of like an adventure business, of like what it's like to be a digital nomad, and like maybe we could chat around some lessons.
Yeah, and I think people have a lot of curiosity around exactly what it is you and I do, like what we do like on a daily basis, because they see the photos of us going on adventures and the trips we lead, and they're like, wow, that's awesome. How, it's always, how do you pay for it, and all these things. And we've addressed that before, but in order to make something happen, like in order to be able to live in another country for an extended amount of time, or travel frequently to many countries all over the world, and make a good income, there's a lot of basics that have to happen, a lot of behind the scene things that need to be taken care of. And so I think it's very telling that you would say something like, I spend 90% of my time at home, which means like you're not even spending time to commute somewhere to work. Like you just wake up and get to work, which is what happens to me. So during that 90% of your time at home, what are some of the chunks of, what do you spend time doing in a normal sort of business day to support your adventure business?
Yeah. So first of all, for people who don't know what I even do, so like I take people on epic adventures, so small groups, that's 7 people plus me, and it's all application only. So it's not just, I don't just throw up a split tested sales page and then, put a bunch of Facebook ads and then hope that people put their numbers in. It's not like that. It's much deeper than that. So building a story and being more well known. This is also building a brand. It's the Bucketlist Lifestyle. I'm hoping to build this brand as a company to where I'm able to step away from this at some point. So I'd say that a large part of my day and my work is actually spending it around brand awareness. So even this podcast interview is brand awareness and connecting with other people. So for example, there's a new magazine in San Diego that I'm really wanting to get on the cover of. Like that's my goal right now. So okay, how do I do that? Who do I need to talk to? What kind of a marketing system do I need to make in order to market to those people and to other people, in the editors of that? Okay, so I need to do Facebook ads specifically to the editors, and figuring out basically, okay, I need to make my brand as an expert. I need to be an expert with adventures. I want people to think, when they think adventure, I want them to think the Bucketlist Lifestyle. When they think the Bucketlist Lifestyle, I want them to think adventure. And same thing with my name. I want people to think Chase Boehringer, Bucketlist Lifestyle, and adventure. So a huge portion of my day is spent trying to connect with people who I would consider to be farther along in the path, I guess, if you want to imagine my fingers going up with quotes right now, but connecting with people who are able to spread my message farther and attempting to get speaking gigs, trying to basically be heard and be seen, because my marketing strategy in a nutshell, a really little tiny nutshell, is be known by more people, be liked by more people, and be trusted by more people. So the more people who know you, the more people will like you, and the more people will trust you. It doesn't mean everyone who knows you will like you, and it doesn't mean that everyone who likes you will trust you. But it means that, if you scale, then the more people are more likely to actually trust you. And when they trust you and they associate your name with something, then they'll actually buy.
What channels or people specifically have you experienced the best building of your brand, or the best sort of return on investment of building a relationship or going on a specific show or something like that? What's the best result?
Yeah, for me, from what I've experienced, I would say talking with friends of friends. And I get quite a lot of Facebook requests. So what I do is every single person who either likes the Bucketlist Lifestyle Facebook page, or anyone who joins our meetup group, or anyone who personally adds me as a friend on Facebook, I send them a voice message. And I just simply say, "Hey, Julia, so nice to connect with you. I was just curious what inspired you to reach out to me. And I'm also just curious, what are you bringing into the world? Like, what are you excited? I look forward to knowing if maybe we can have a connection together and we can support each other in some way. And if not, it's great to connect anyways. Have a great day." And then I just send off that voice message to 10 people at a time, because I'll do it 10 times a day. So 10 friend requests, I'll accept all at once, send all of them that voice message, and then start a conversation and see if there's any connection that I can make with that person for either referrals or for someone to come on one of my adventures. Or I'm also a personal coach. So having them potentially either be a client or knowing someone who would like to be a client.
So out of 10 people, let's say, what generally happens? Does one of them lead to a client, or what sort of chance is it that a business opportunity will come versus they're just become a friend?
I'd say it's probably 1 in 150 people will actually turn into cash in my pocket. And that's what it looks like right now, which is not that bad. I mean, because it just takes me a second to do those voice messages, and I just do them 10 a day. So it's really not too bad. And then, I'd say that's still definitely probably the most, because they're getting to connect with you directly, and they can trust it when they hear your voice. And they can trust it because they're talking to you right here, right now. And when I say something like, now in my messages, because I'm trying to get people to go on my next two trips, which are to climb to Everest Base Camp and to run with the bulls in Spain, I'll usually mention, if I feel like this person, I click on their profile, and if they look like someone who would be interested in that, I don't ask this of, like 70-year-old women, but if they look like they'd be a fit, then, I let them know either on that initial message, what I do and what the upcoming stuff is, or I wait for them to message back saying what they're excited about. And of course they'll ask me, what do I do? What am I excited about? And then I'll let them know, oh yeah, I just finished up with a really epic trip to India. It was so challenging, but so incredible and so worth it. People had their lives changed. And now I'm really buckling down and getting ready for my next trip to Nepal. I still have 2 spots left on that. So I'm really just trying to fill those spots, or to meet someone who would be the perfect fit. And then after that is running with the bulls. So it's a nonstop go over here, and also really excited about the adventures to come. Like that to hundreds of people, one person is likely they're going to be interested at least, or know someone who is.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So this is very heavy on the personal connecting side. It sounds like you probably get more business from relationships than you do from other marketing channels.
No question. It's because when you're just starting out, when you're at the beginning of your business, I'm not that well known in the sense of the Bucketlist Lifestyle is that kind of business where people are like, wait, I think I've heard of you, but I very rarely get someone who's like, oh, I know you, I follow you, I love your stuff. So it's still something where people don't truly know me and like me enough yet to where they trust me. And that means that I need to get on have a conversation with them or make them feel a connection with me in order for them to be willing to drop $2,000.
Yeah. And you mentioned this new magazine in San Diego, getting on the cover is sweet. I'd like to be on the cover of the Rolling Stone.
Of course.
But so like, why, how does that fit in? Like, it's cool, but how does that fit in?
Definitely. No, there's a very specific way this fits in, because what happens is now I am an expert, and now other magazines, other podcasts, any kind of journalism, whether that's TV or print or online, is going to see me and say, okay, he's been in that. Now he's good enough to be on my podcast. And here's what I do specifically. This is very important. So after I get on this cover, for example, or let's say I get an article in Forbes or whatever it is for you, then I post that on the Bucketlist Lifestyle's business Facebook page, and then I boost that post. It's not a Facebook ad, it's a boosted content piece. So it doesn't take people away from Facebook, meaning Facebook will show it to about twice as many people for the same amount of money. And then I am able to show this to 50,000 people if I'd like to, and they're going to be like, oh shit, this guy is legit. And they're going to know me as a legit dude for the first time they see me. And also, I'm able to boost this specifically towards editors of magazines and producers of TV shows, even specific TV shows, like something that I want to be on, like Vice or whatever, National Geographic. And I'm able to start peppering all of these editors, all of these decision makers at these big media outlets with me. And they're going to go, okay, this guy's in the front of a, magazine. Who the hell's this guy? And if they might not, but I think that that's a pretty damn way to get started with it.
So let's assume they see this boosted post. Do you then reach out with an email to them personally and ask to be on their TV show, or what's the next step once you sort of think that they might have seen you?
So I can do that, or I can, what I usually do, or what I'm actually planning to do, because I just started this after going to a marketing mastermind, and I was just told all about this and it blew my mind. So I'm very excited about it now. But so I can send in my one-pager for a speaking gig, because I'll throw, there'll be an adventure conference in Denver or something, and then I'll put a little geo, just so it's only in one area, and I'll really hit Denver hard with my advertising, and then I'll apply, and they'll be like, oh, okay, I've heard of you. You're that guy who was on the National Geographic or whatever the hell. And then you're working your way up the ladder, because I'm not going to make $1 technically from being on the front page of a magazine, whether it's Rolling Stones or not. But what you are is you're climbing the ladder. It starts with this small magazine in San Diego, and then it moves up to a big podcast, a top 100 podcast, and then it moves up to a TV show that wants to interview me, and you keep moving up until you're so well known. And that's the difference between building a brand for long-term sustainability versus the just wanting to basically sell something where you just make a split test your sales page, and then you just like, okay, cool, how are we going to sell this fucking umbrella? It's a lot different than a long-term plan of building a brand that you want to have for the next 50 years. Yeah.
And we just had Robin Farmian on the show, and she had this great concept of Robin Inc., which is basically setting up a business in order to build her personal brand. And the business has been basically running to build her reputation for the last 5 years. Very, very impressive. And I know that she also used speaking at key events and conferences as one of the ways to sort of build that credibility piece.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it goes into vision of what you're actually wanting, and looking down the road and figuring out what that vision is, let's say 5 years, 10 years, which is actually a lot easier than knowing necessarily what you're going to do 1 year from now. It's a lot easier to envision what you want your business and your life to really turn into. And then, of course, once it's like, okay, now I'm clear with the vision. Now let's scale it back and focus on what the next steps are in more of a short-term plan. But I'm a big fan of like really getting direction. I'm sure I can come up with some cliche quote like, if your sailboat has no direction, then you'll turn in circles in the ocean for eternity, or something.
Oh, that old quote.
Yeah, that old Irish quote that we all know and love.
So actually, I remember when we were spending time at our mastermind together in San Diego, we did the future pacing the 3-year walkthrough. So if you're willing to share sort of what your midterm vision is, maybe that could help place everything in context as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Because my midterm, meaning let's say 3 years from now, and everything is building to this, maybe even sooner as things progress. But I'm going to be having tour guides on every single trip that I do, and they'll be taking over my business in a sense, where I will have my right-hand man being a project manager, where he takes care of all of the trips. He plans the trips. He puts out all the fires. If there's any kind of issues on the trips, he does all of the itineraries and basically figures out when everyone's coming to the airport, when they're leaving, everything. All right. So when it comes to the details, he takes care of everything. And then my tour guides are the ones who are actually taking people on these trips. I have my marketing person who's taking care of all of the marketing. And all I have to do is decide what trips are the best trips to go on, because I've done pretty much the most epic shit on earth. So that's where I'd be good at. And then if I choose to, I can go on these trips, but I don't have to. And that's where I'd like to be, because for now, our trips are pretty well priced, honestly. And once I have tour guides taking care of those, then I will be doing the high ticket trips, meaning just got contracted for a $70,000 to $100,000 trip later on this year in Hawaii. Whoa. So, I mean, we're talking like a big, huge trips that are basically going to, I'd like to spend my time doing the big trips, doing epic things and either way we're doing epic things, don't get me wrong. But, we're talking next level, like supercar racing through the streets of Rio kind of thing. So yeah, that's in a nutshell, that's my vision for the next few years, is basically getting my business in a place where I can set up systems and processes on the back end of my business, and then allow other people to take people on the trips, having my project manager take care of really the meat of all of the trips. Also, one thing that I didn't have in place when I was talking with you is doing speaking gigs to corporations, and then taking C-level execs on leadership adventure retreats, and also being able to franchise out the name, the Bucketlist Lifestyle, to trusted friends, making them sign a non-compete agreement, of course, and then having them take over, let's say, Hawaii, for example, Italy, Africa, people who are really steeped in the area and have been running tours there already. And then I'd be able to just simply use them as a third-party operator, and then through the name, the Bucketlist Lifestyle, and they would just take over all of operations in that place for the Bucketlist Lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. And right now, do you have someone planning your trips,
yes.
like taking care of, the details at the airport?
Yes and no. So I do. He's a beast. I love the guy. He just went with me to India, and I'm so glad that he was there, because it was so challenging. But yeah, he plans all the itineraries. He does all the detail work, because that's where I struggle. That's my challenge, is spreadsheets and details and things that are important, but so is vision, and so is leadership, and the things that I bring to the table. So we're a very good yin and yang, where he takes care of the small little details, and make sure that we have backups for the backups, and everything's in place and everything's going smooth. And I take care of what I'm great at. So it's good.
What's an example of something that he's taking care of that you might have overlooked? Like a time when you were really glad that he had track of the details.
For sure. So, for example, knowing who in our group has internet. So if our group is separating momentarily, he would make sure that every single little part of our group had internet, to make sure that if something went wrong, at least we'd have one person in each little mini group if we're getting lost or something, or going to the market. that everybody would at least have access to internet to contact us if something went wrong. And things like, money, for example, if someone needed to borrow money for some random reason, like, oh crap, I need to get into this, this place, or can I borrow 500 rupees or 1,000 rupees? For me, like, I'm not the type, I'm like, you better remember that, because I'm sure as hell not going to remember it. And he would write down every lunch, every dinner, every breakfast, every dollar that we'd spend. He'd write it down and he'd put it in a spreadsheet to make sure that we're staying on track for our budget. And if we weren't on budget, then we need to adjust things and be like, okay, well, what should we do? How do we make sure to stay on budget? I would have never been like keeping up with the budget and figuring out, like, as we're going along, okay, how do we adjust this and all that kind of stuff. So it's so nice to have him.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, because you're so focused on so many different things. It's having a second brain.
Yep.
Super helpful. Nice. Actually, I haven't heard anything about your India trip. I know you went for the Holi festival. What was the thing you least expected about that trip?
Man, least expected. I did so much research that I feel like there was a little bit of understanding of how rough it would be. But I'd say I did not expect it to be as challenging as it really was. I've been to India before. I've done the Holi festival before, but it was so challenging over and over and over in India, where we would get to our Airbnb. We stayed at 4 different villas in India, and all 4 of them tried to screw me over in some way. Whether that was them just saying, oh, no, you have to pay us money before we check out. That's not how Airbnb works. And I'm like, actually, no, Airbnb takes the money. We've already paid. Or them saying, oh, well, you have to pay extra because you use that extra bed. And, things like, oh, actually, there's 8 of you, but there's only 4 beds and you can all share beds. And having to deal with situations where you check out of an Airbnb and you're standing on the side of the road waiting for a van that you rented, and the van just doesn't show up. And you call the company and they say, oh, yeah, we're not going to be able to help you out. And you say, I've already paid for this van. I have 8 people on the side of the road with their bags, and we're going 5 hours to Jaipur. Situations like that where you are straight up screwed, and they just say, well, we can be there in 4 hours. And you go, all right, how the hell am I going to get 8 people 5 hours within the next 15 minutes? Because we can't just stand out here all night on the side of the road. Challenging situations like that, I sure as hell did not expect.
Well, yeah. So what did you do?
Oh, we ended up getting 3 Ubers to take us 5 hours each.
Oh my gosh.
3 different Ubers. So it was the longest Uber of my life, a 5-hour Uber. And we each got into an Uber, and then 45 minutes into an Uber ride, Jerome, my right-hand man, his Uber just pulled over on the side of the road and said, nope, I don't feel like driving anymore, and kicked them out on the side of the road, and then just drove off in the middle of fucking nowhere in India.
Whoa.
Yeah, and so they're just like on the outskirts of Delhi in the middle of nowhere, and with their backpacks just standing on the side of the road. And they're like trying to get another Uber in the middle of nowhere, but there is no Uber, especially no Uber that wants to drive 5 hours in the evening. So it was a challenge, but in the end, I think the last car finally arrived at 1 a.m. and we made it. We made it to Jaipur. And that's the whole point, is that I think it was the most empowering trip of my life because it was the most challenging trip of my life, and we figured it out. Every single challenge that came up, I crushed it, and I found a way and pushed through and made it happen. Every Airbnb that tried to come up with something tricky, I let them know, straight up, like, hey, that's not how it works. Here's the proof. I've already paid, blah, blah, blah. Here's how many beds we had. And I understand how bad a bad review is for Airbnb. And I let them know, okay, if you want to do this, that's okay, but I'm going to leave a very bad review and you're not going to get anyone to stay in this place anymore. And then, of course, they would just find 4 more beds magically, or they would just realize all of a sudden, oh, I guess you're right. So it was really challenging. It reminded me of the difficulty of travel of Cuba. However, the scammy, I guess you'd call it, scamminess of nowhere. Like I've never been anywhere like that.
It's really interesting. It's, with that many, 100% Airbnbs trying to scam you, drivers, stopping in the middle. It sounds very cultural. Like we're just going to try every little thing to squeeze money out of this situation. And we are just going to do whatever the hell we want without considering what's going on there. Why is that happening?
Yeah. So first of all, because I don't want to insult anyone's culture by saying it's a cultural thing of Indians, because India is such a massive country with 1.3 billion humans. So it's definitely not a Indian culture, meaning it's everyone there is this way, or even most people are this way. I will say, in my experience, I did have 5 Airbnbs attempt to screw me over before I even got to India and canceled them. So 9 Airbnbs total.
Wow. That
tried to screw me over. So it was a consistent thing, not only that, and also doing research for India, definitely finding tons and tons of people who are saying, we're getting scammed, blah, blah, blah. The tuk-tuk drivers take us to this place and they try and get our money. And I'm a pretty... I have good boundaries. So, Derek, you know me, and for the people who don't, like, I can be a pretty blunt person. Like, I really don't give a fuck if someone doesn't like me, or if someone feels bad because they're trying to screw me over, and I tell them to their face, no, that's not going to happen. I don't have a problem with that. So, especially when I'm leading a group of people and someone's trying to take advantage of my group, I am full mama bear, like silverback in that moment, where I'm like, no one will you fuck with me, but you do not mess with my group. And I actually had to do that a couple times. And it is an interesting thing. And I would say that in the when we talk about cultural, I would say it is cultural for the people who deal with tourists consistently. So the people who have to deal with tourists where they don't even know how many rupees are in their damn wallet, and they're trying to, is it the purple one or the blue one, Marge? I don't know which one to give him. Just like there's so much money, and I saw that plenty, as you see around the world in many countries where there's not a lot of money, where people with money don't give that much of a fuck, and it really trains people to just be like, to take that 2,000 rupees. Instead of, even though it was supposed to be 200 rupees that they were only supposed to get. Because it's like, that person is just going to make it again in like a day, and they don't even care. So for them, I think it just trains people who are consistently around tourists to take money and to want more money. Because of course, if you're in a situation in your life that's incredibly financially challenging, and it's been a struggle your whole life, and you see the fat cow coming over, it's like, I could imagine why that would be why that would want to pull you in to do things that are not necessarily morally comprehensible.
Yeah. That's a really good point. And I actually see something similar here living in Bali. The chance to sell your rice field to a resort, to have them build on it, and give up your sort of family heritage, I see as this huge challenge for people. And there's like the Balinese that are, we're never going to sell, farming rice is our heritage. And then their neighbor makes a cool $1 million selling a plot of their land, when the rice farmer is making, $1,000 a year or whatever. And it's like, oh my gosh, the temptation to want to give in to whatever is pretty intense. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I totally get that. It's sort of like, I can imagine, like musical artists talk about selling out. Like everyone wants to sell out. Yeah. I want to get that money.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a challenge when you've never had it before. I mean, rich people and feeling so disconnected from them that they were hardly even human, because they were just so different. A rich person, or even a rich kid, it was like they were just a whole different human. And so when I can imagine that when an Indian person who's financially struggling sees a tourist, and they're probably very disconnected from that person, and they just see that, oh, hey, it's a rich person, And I'm like, how can I get some of that money so I can support myself? And you also have no idea what's going on in their life. You have no clue if they have a child who's disabled and they need that money like so much more than you, and they're willing to do whatever it takes to get that money. Whether that's morally right or wrong, it doesn't matter. So you never know.
Do you ever get that sort of, like, if you were to meet a billionaire or a super influential person that like ran a TV network or something, do you ever have the tables turned where you're like, oh my gosh, I really want this person to promote me, it would be so awesome, and think like I'm willing to do whatever? Or, you know, because obviously we have some empathy and we're like, okay, I don't want to be annoying to this rich influential person. But do you ever feel like you meet super influential people that you just like, oh man, it would be so awesome if this person helped me?
Yeah, I'm awkward. I'll like when so luckily this hasn't happened in a while, because I haven't actually met someone who I would consider to be like on that level who I know. Like oftentimes they're on that level and I don't even know who they are, because I am very much in my own little bubble. But for example, do you know Chris Guillebeau?
Sure.
Chris Guillebeau.
He's been on the show.
So okay, yeah. So Chris, if you're listening, I'm an awkward man and I'm your fangirl. So I met Chris at the World Domination Summit, which is a conference that he puts on. Very brief, and I'm watching him at the after party, and I'm just like, oh my god, like Chris is like, oh my god, I'm like such a fan, and I love his books, and I love everything, and like I go up to him, and I'm like, hi, I'm Chase, and he goes, hey, I'm Chris, and I'm like, I'm like, you're awesome, and he goes, thanks, and I'm like, okay, bye, and like I just like walk off because like I don't know what to say, and I'm so awkward. And I just feel that like I didn't feel like I had a connection with him because I didn't feel like I was even worthy of talking with him. And this was years ago, by the way. This was probably 3 years ago at this point. But yeah, at that point, I just didn't feel like I was even on the same plane, and that I really was a fan. Like I just wanted to like tell him he's awesome. I was too nervous to even talk, and then just walk away.
So if you ran into Chris Guillebeau again tomorrow, how would you approach?
Oh, it would be so much more cool and much more like, oh, hey, you're a dude. Because now that I've met so many of my heroes, I really understand. That's why I say never meet your heroes, because they're just dudes. Like they're just people. And when you understand, like when I feel that, when I hang out with my heroes and they're talking to me about their problems, and their problems are bigger than mine and way bigger sometimes. And they're, you know, we're talking about suicide. We're talking about like the deepest, darkest shit with people who I put on the biggest pedestal, and then other people, now that other people put me on that pedestal, and now that other people see me as this guy, and they get awkward with me and they shake my hand, walk away, and they do very awkward things. Like someone walked up to me. I remember someone walked up to me and they were like, he had I think it was Central American accent of some kind, maybe some kind of Hispanic accent. He goes, Mr. Chase, he goes, I just want to shake the hand of the best man in the world. Okay, bye. And then he walks away really fast. And I'm like, what does that even mean? I'm not that. What? I'm a dude. Like I'm a guy. And yeah, so just when people put me on a pedestal, I really understand fully now that like, oh, we're just people, like the President of the United States to Oprah to whatever, like we're all fucking human beings. And really when you understand that fully, it makes everybody seem so much more accessible, because you are on their level, because everybody is on everybody's level, from the homeless person to the president. We are all on the same level. It's only the perception that you are not on that level is the only reason that you're not on that level.
Wow. I think that is a really great spot to wrap. It is a very profound realization, which just wrote down in my notebook. Yeah.
Great. I'm glad. I think it's a really good place. I know that we had a very interesting roller coaster of a conversation, but I enjoyed like every minute, and I hope that everyone who's still with us up until this point has enjoyed the stories and the anecdotes and everything that we had to offer for you. And if you want to connect with me, like everybody who tells me that they heard of me through The Art of Adventure or through Derek is always awesome. So feel free. You can just see my name is going to be below this, Chase Boehringer. Feel free to just add me on Facebook, and you will hear one of my voice messages that I told you about earlier.
That's pretty tempting for people.
Exactly. You want a voice message from me, a personalized voice message? I'll even say your first name. And and then, go ahead and add me on Facebook, and then like and follow the Bucketlist Lifestyle on Facebook and Instagram. We have a dope Instagram account. It's _Bucketlist_lifestyle. Couldn't get the Bucketlist Lifestyle, even though it's not even in use. Hopefully I'll be able to get that one day.
Wrestle it away from that guy. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Chase, it's always a pleasure. Thanks for coming on the show. Really fun. And
absolutely.
Who knows where we'll run into each other next.
I'm sure it'll be on an adventure of some kind.
All right, brother. Talk to you soon.
Thanks.
Bye. All right, I hope you enjoyed that episode with Chase. It's obvious to me that Chase has this well-honed traveler's spidey sense, that he knows when someone is going to scam him. And it's partly this awareness that helps you not get scammed, that helps you not get robbed or mugged or kidnapped or all of these things when you're traveling in out of the way places. And it's cool just to hear from him how he approaches these situations. And obviously we both have adventure companies. He's got the Bucketlist Lifestyle and I've got Adventure Quest. So if you don't have enough adventure in your life, highly recommend checking out one of our trips, because either one is going to be awesome. They're for different purposes. Mine involve a training component, a coaching component, and his are purely about the adventure. But don't let me hear you say that you don't have enough adventure in your life, because you can come and join us. And if you haven't reached out and connected, obviously Chase has made it very accessible for you to connect with him. And likewise for me, you can send me an email, derek@derekloudermilk.com. You can connect with me on Instagram. And I would also super love it if you haven't left a review for this podcast on iTunes. It really helps keep the show up in the rankings so other people can find out about it. And let me know in your comment, in your review, what you got out of this episode, what the coolest story was, or what you learned, or what's going to be useful for you. And that is all for today's episode. So now it's your turn to go out there and be adventurous.